Are we good?
I think so.
Are we good? I can hear you now.
Okay. Thank you. How many minutes ago? Okay. I will call the November 1st Webster City Council meeting to order. Call the roll.
Megan McFarland,
Here.
John Hawkins,
Here.
Matt McKinney,
Here.
Brian Miller,
Here.
Logan Welch,
Here. Call for motion to approve the agenda. So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, number one, this is the time of the meeting that a citizen may address the council on a matter not on the agenda, no more than 5 minutes per person, except in case of emergency. City Council will not take any action at this meeting, but may ask city staff to have the matter researched or put the matter on a future agenda. Anyone have anything? I have remarked on.
Yeah, this item is on the agenda. I wanted to address the council on the penalty.
Okay.
We're gonna do that now, or?
Well,
no.
we can wait until we start. There's a separate
All right.
one for that. Okay, we have an annual citywide leaf pickup Monday, November 8th. The residents should have their leaves in plastic bags and on the curb by 7 a.m. Crews will make one pass through the city. Bags will need to be tied, and please do not place sticks or any other type of yard waste in the rubbish in the bags. Only leaves and grass clippings are allowed. Please make sure, if it is your designated trash pickup day, that the leaf bags are separated from the trash to be picked up. Volunteers are needed to help pick up leaves and place in the compost pile. Contact Brandon Barnabas at the Street Department or City Hall if you are interested in helping out. And also a reminder that tomorrow is city and school elections. Get out and vote. Anyone else have anything? Okay. Item 2 is minutes and claims. The following items have been deemed non-controversial routine actions to be approved by the council in a single motion. If a council member or a member of the audience wishes to have an item removed from this list, we consider it in its normal sequence on the agenda. A is minutes of October 18th. B is a resolution on payroll for period ending October 23rd and paid on October 29th. C is a resolution on bills and approved fund list.
Move to approve collectively.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
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 Okay, item 3, general agenda. City, you want to let this? First,
Either or, if you'd like to.
if you want to get up and we'll do the pinhole thing now, so pinhole leaks.
When you come, if you say your name and your address.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm Bob Burns, 1420 East 2nd Street, Webster City, Iowa. Proud to be there. I know that the city is working on the problem with the pinhole leaks. I've filled out the proper form that they sent me, and I sent it back to them. But I wanted to address you folks and tell you exactly what it's like in the trenches. On Thursday, October the 14th, I was very rudely awakened from a nap by my wife screaming in the basement for flooded. Upon inspection, I found water leaking out of a cold, half-inch cold copper pipe. I shut the water off and was off all night. We lost some seasonal clothing that was stored, and we had a heck of a mess on the floor to clean up. There was no shark bites in town. A shark bite, if you know it or not, is a patch to put in between two pieces of copper pipe. None in town. The plumbers bought them all up. What do you know about that? Had to go to Fort Dodge to get a repair patch. Got the water leak fixed on Friday night. Our insurance is $1,000 deductible, and I'm concerned about future problems. We have a softener on the hot water line. We had 2 inline filters on the water line coming into the house, 3/4 inch line coming into the house. One of them is a paper filter, and the other one is a carbon filter. The paper filter turns brown in less than 30 days. It's white when it goes in there. It turns brown. The water out of the tap smells so strong of chlorine. It frequently smells of chlorine. The replacement faucet in our kitchen sink 4 times in 11 years. Feaster, we bought a new Feaster faucet to the tune of about $189 when we moved into the house 11 years ago because the other faucet was shot. They guarantee them for life. God bless them. I've replaced it 4 times in 11 years. And the one that's in there now needs replacing again. It's leaking and it corrodes so badly that you can't, it won't twist back and forth. It was new, the one that's on there now was new, replaced in August of 2019. They also get those pinholes in the head where it comes out from the tap. It's one of these ones that you pull out and spray around in the head of the tap. Gets little pinholes in the side of it, and then it squirts water sideways instead of where it's supposed to be. My wife says taking a bath is like going to a swimming pool. Chlorine smells so bad. She buys bottled water for the coffee because fellas, Webster City water stinks. Well, you can do anything about it or not, but I sure would appreciate, glad that you would let me tell you what our problems are out there in the field. And like I say, I'm very concerned. My house was built in 1972. It's a nice brick house. I hate to think of having to replumb that out. And to make it worse, the plumbing goes through the walls. How do I know when we got a leak behind the toilet in the bathroom? Won't know it until the wall falls apart. So I'm real concerned about it and hope that you can get something done about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Nobody? Okay. What do we got?
So, yeah, I just want to provide the council and the public an update on where we're at on our pinhole leak investigation. And just to kind of recap, I think, back in July, I think it was Councilmember Welch who had notified staff of a couple pinhole leaks he had in his home. And at that time, toward sometime between middle to end of July, we had contacted and communicated with the Iowa DNR regarding the cases and claims that are being made with regards to pinhole leaks. At that time, they advised the city that we do what's referred to as a Langolier index to monitor and measure the corrosiveness of the water. The initial indications on the results that came back off the Langolier index showed the water didn't have any corrosiveness to it. Since then, obviously, the number of cases have continued to increase over time. We've spoken and initially had consulted back in September with our engineers, Bolton and Mink, regarding the issue, and began to look at it. And as time went on over the next couple of weeks, we've obviously seen a much more dramatic increase in pinhole leaks that have occurred throughout the community. And we've since, in addition to Bolton and Mink, we've communicated and brought on Dr. Mark Edwards from Virginia Tech University. He's a leading expert in the country regarding corrosiveness and water chemistry. His team and himself have investigated a number of pinhole leaks throughout the country, various different issues and circumstances revolving that. So we've asked Dr. Edwards as well as Greg Sint from Bolton and Mink to be here today to be able to provide a synopsis with Dr. Edwards providing some of his experience and what you've seen in other communities that have experienced this similar issue. In Iowa, we are aware, or at least that through the Iowa Rural Water Association or the DNR or through other contacts in other communities, similar instances that have occurred, not to this scale, but that have occurred without any clear indication as to what the causes or the reasons behind were. We've yet to determine what the exact cause of what's driving the pinhole leaks in our community are, and that's similar to what other cities such as Humboldt, Storm Lake, and other communities that have across the country that have navigated this. Is the problem had occurred without any indication or reason specifically of what caused that, and over time they've either diminished or through various other processes have been diminished over time. But that's the synopsis, at least, of what we know so far. I'll try to give it over to Dr. Edwards to be able to provide his comments on some of his experience and what he's seen in other communities and how similar or dissimilar to what we are navigating. So, Dr. Edwards, if you can hear us.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Wonderful. Well, I've been studying this problem for 31 years now. And on average, at any time, I'm working with one or two communities who have these problems. And it's a very frustrating problem for everyone concerned, obviously, because it's very expensive and stressful for homeowners and for the water providers. It's also a huge concern, and for scientists, it's been a topic of a lot of interest for a long time. And it wasn't until about 10 years ago that we figured out some of the causes of this problem. And I think one of the key points to note is that regardless of what the cause is, we have in some cases solved the problem. Specifically by dosing orthophosphate to water, which is a safe chemical that is used in about half of water utilities nationally to control corrosion. And you did have phosphate in your water for most of the time previously, so you were one of those that had phosphate corrosion control. But we have recommended a switch to a phosphate that's a little bit different than the one you've had because we've had better luck with it in terms of controlling pinhole leak corrosion. Excuse me. So I think that this is this issue is something I think the city has been very aggressive about dealing with in the last 10 days or 2 weeks that I've been involved. There's been they've really pulled out all the stops to try to figure out what this potential solution to the problem could be. So I've got, frankly, nothing but good things to say about how aggressive they've been in dealing with this since I've been called, at least. And so I have no reservations about seeing that. And I think another thing to note that makes this problem so frustrating is that it literally gets worse the cleaner and more pure your water is. There are constituents, natural constituents in water that can be inhibitor to this phenomenon, but they tend to make your water a little bit discolored, or they represent salts in the water. And so to some extent, because to the extent the water has fewer salts and is more pure, we have noted in our prior literature that that has a greater propensity to cause this problem. And so for that reason, generally speaking, there's literally no correlation, or there's actually an inverse correlation between water safety and this problem, and that it tends to be the cleaner, higher quality water sources that are generally considered better or safer that tend to cause this problem with copper pipes. Another irony about this problem is that the EPA has let in copper rule regulations that you have to control the corrosivity of your water to meet EPA regulations. And one of the ironies is that this problem gets worse as the lead and copper in the water regulated by the EPA gets better. So a lot of things about this problem are very counterintuitive. It makes it very frustrating. That makes it interesting for researchers to study it, but we're going to try to get this problem fixed for y'all as soon as possible.
Dr. Edwards, can you talk briefly on the test results on the lead and copper testing that we received today that went out last week?
Yeah, as expected, in waters that have copper pinhole leaks, the lead and copper levels were very low. So again, it goes to that counterintuitive effect. You'd naturally be inclined to think, oh my gosh, it's eating the pipes up. We're going to have all kinds of copper and lead in the water. It's actually an inverse relationship. It actually tends to be the exact opposite effect.
Thank you, Dr. Edwards. Greg, is there anything you want to add?
I would just say that Dr. Edwards has been doing this research for 30-some years, and he's seen a lot of different areas of the country with this problem. And maybe Dr. Edwards could give us a flavor of some of the other situations you've seen and what the outcomes have been.
Okay, well, I'm going to give it to you straight. That's my reputation. That's my nature. So there have been cases, there have been situations where we could not stop this problem. There were cases in, for example, Sarasota, Florida, where essentially copper pipe got wiped out because of, virtually 60, 70% of the residents had leaks. We have had situations where we stopped this problem almost cold in its tracks. And I have reason to believe, I have reason to hope, based on the recipe of the water and the trajectory of this, that by adding the orthophosphate, I believe there's a very good chance that we can dramatically reduce the incidence of these leaks. I might be proven wrong. There's so much about this problem that we do not know. I've told you two extremes that we have witnessed. In one situation, nothing we tried could stop the problem. And in other situations, we were able to reduce the frequency of the leaks by a factor of 10 within about 2 or 3 weeks. The other thing to keep in mind is there is a normal level of copper pipe failure across the United States that on average in consumer residences, which are on average 30, 40 years old, across the US. About 0.5% of homes, even in areas that do not experience pinhole leaks, have a leak. So there is a baseline level of pipe failure that occurs. No plumbing material is perfect. Every plumbing material, whether it's PVC, PEX, copper, they have their weak points, they have their failure rates. So our goal here is not to eliminate leaks completely, because that's just not possible. But the goal is to reduce the frequency of the leaks to the point it's kind of back at baseline levels, normal levels, where, you know, on average, your copper plumbing system can last 30, 40, 50 years before it needs to be replaced. So that's the range of my experience.
Dr. Edwards, my wife's been feeding me a couple pictures off the Facebook feed, and some people who aren't here. And one of the questions I've been asking the community, and one of the questions I think is popping up on our Facebook feed is, what relevance or contributing factors have you seen contribute to something like this happening in a relatively short amount of time? So almost like all at once, in a sense. Again, that would be kind of the root of all the questions we're trying to source here. But in other communities, when you've seen this be a very aggressive in a small time frame, what were some contributing factors to that?
Usually when it has occurred suddenly across an entire system, it has a common cause. And in many cases, we've been able to trace that back to a change in water chemistry that was thought to be benign and or beneficial, but actually made this very unusual problem, the unusual problem of pinhole leaks, that made it worse. So again, this problem is very, very counterintuitive. As I mentioned, the things that a utility does to improve corrosion control, according to the EPA rules, to lower the amount of lead and copper in the water, on average, tend to make this problem more likely. So it's kind of a law of unintended consequences sometimes, where the things we do to make water safe can sometimes make this very unusual problem worse. So I'm not saying that's what the cause is. I'm just telling you that in some prior cases where there was a sudden spike, we later identified a water change that was considered good, but that made this very unusual problem bad.
Thank you.
Does anyone have a question? They want to ask?
Could you answer just one question for me? And I've researched this, so I think I already know the answer, but is chlorine the cause for the pinhole leaks in copper? Or could it be?
Yeah, for one of the recipes of water that we have identified that can eat a hole in a brand new copper pipe in 1 month. So literally we got to the point in our laboratory where we could make up a recipe that we take a brand new copper pipe and have a hole in 1 month. That's how bad this problem can get. A key ingredient of that recipe was chlorine. So that is in our peer-reviewed papers. And I provided the town with that information. And if they want to share that with you, you want to email me, I'd be happy to send it to you. But, you know, we have to realize chlorine's very important. Chlorine stops waterborne disease. Chlorine has wiped out a lot of epidemics that were the scourge of drinking water 100 years ago. So chlorine's good, chlorine's important. But there is this unintended consequence where sometimes it can accelerate this unusual type of attack on copper pipe.
So if a change of water chemistry can cause this to happen fast, was there a change of water chemistry 3 weeks ago?
Can you tell me your name, please?
John Kowalik,
Okay.
1701 Locust Street.
I don't know if Greg, you have more detailed information on that, but at least 3 weeks ago, I don't believe there was any change in the water chemistry or anything added to that.
No, and Dr. Edwards is reviewing that information also, so it's something that's been identified as a sudden change. I guess, do the comment.
To maybe better ask.
We noticed that we had hard water a few weeks ago because of the softening process was taken offline for maintenance. The water hardness increased, which was a change in chemistry, but this problem was developing before that happened. So I temper that a little bit. And Dr. Edwards is good to point this out too, is that it's difficult to arrive at real concrete conclusions on this at this point, and sometimes the root cause is never identified. It's just a crazy thing that happens, and I'm going to defer to Dr. Edwards on maybe some expanding on that a little bit, about reaching conclusions early in the process.
Well, I think, you know, in the future that we can review that data and look back with hindsight and try to see what might have happened. I think right now, you know, the key point is that the city has tried to implement a solution and to do so as quickly as possible. And so I think that's all I can say at this time. And I think there will be a review of data at some point, and whether that involves me or not, I'm not, you know, really sure, because I was hired to try to get this problem fixed as soon as possible. And all I can say is that it's been the speed at which people have acted here has been very, very good. So when it comes to that issue, I can just tell you point blank, I tell it like it is. People have moved quickly on this.
Maybe a better way to rephrase the question to our consultants and to city staff is, obviously this has been ongoing. You know, my email came in July, but I know this was coming in far before that, through reports from plumbing specialists around the community as well as residents. So, and I think the community is really looking for, was there a change in the chemistry whenever? And if there was, could it have caused it? So maybe a better way to ask this gentleman's question is, has there been a change to the chemistry of our water? And I would say probably a year to two, because it could have maybe just, you know, snowballed up to the current situation we have. So I would pose your question in a larger time frame to our consultants.
Is there an answer to that?
I'm asking, but I haven't been told that either.
Okay. So in the water chemistry question, Tom Green here, I'm just from my own past experiences working at a water treatment plant. So we had similar issues when your incoming pH of your groundwater changed, or your water source. If you change that, you control that typically by your caustic feed. And so I didn't know if there's anything from a caustic dosing, or so. I mean, if your water pH drops significantly from a pipe perspective, is where you can start having those issues, but you won't see them immediately. And so just asking the question, if there was a change in the caustic feed controlling or neutralizing the incoming pH water, could have led, it would have a slower lead time on that.
That's good to know, but again, I'll let my question stand. You know, I just small, minute changes over time to our water chemistry or water treatment process in the past year to two. I posed that question to the acting water superintendent when I sent my email back in July, and I got a no. And I just want to know if any information since then has changed that answer.
I couldn't tell you anything before, I guess, before the end of July when I came, in terms of what exactly was looked at.
So maybe I'm maybe I don't know, and I just want to say this out loud, and maybe it's not right. So I believe that we fall within DNR guidelines, right? There's a bunch of tests and ranges we have to fall in, and those are tested weekly. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's certain things that are, I guess, tested daily and weekly, and there are approximately, I believe, 9 samples that are collected monthly and sent to the state laboratory for testing. That testing specifically, bacteria growth, coliform, E. coli, any of those that come back positive or within an abnormal level get immediately reported back to the city as well as the DNR, and the DNR takes action at that point with addressing whatever the case will be.
So that keeps us keeping the water safe, keeps everybody's water safe if we follow those guidelines. And as far as when I asked about this back when this all took place, we've never had anything that was off the charts or even close. We've stayed in those guidelines. I think that's what everybody's trying to say. This is an unmeasurable thing, an unprecedented thing, or a not easily trackable thing. So I think if it was as easy as we had one thing we're measuring and it was out of whack for a month, we'd be going, oh my gosh, that month we did this thing. I don't think anyone's found that smoking gun per se.
Well,
or we'd be attacking it with this gentleman and with Bolton and Mink to fix whatever that was.
I guess I'm asking this question as more of a probing question for everyone on the same page, because I've had a hard time getting the answer. And I understand you came back on board in late July or August, but you've also been privy to the information recorded and logged prior to that. So again, I'll ask it, has there been a huge change or small change to what we do, maybe the process as we do it in the last year or two? I'm not saying this to set up the city. I'm saying this so that we can just look it in the eye. So again, I've been given the answer no from the former superintendent, water superintendent, and I've been given the answer, I don't know, I came in July. So I'm just asking information that's been laid out on our consultant's table and desk. Have you seen any changes to the way we treated water in the last year or two? Not saying it's a smoking gun, I'm just saying, has that been done?
Right now, we don't know.
And can you see how that's frustrating, not only to me as a content officer, but also the community? Because we've just spent the last 2 months digging into this, and we don't know if we treat our water different. And that right there loses a lot of faith. And I just don't know if we're being forthcoming with information or we're being hesitant. And either way, I just think that we're losing faith and we're not managing the situation the best way possible by not divulging information as we come about it.
Well, let me just kind of, I guess, phrase what I think Logan's asking in a different way. How far, Greg, can you answer, how far back are we looking? Are we looking at 12 to 18 months worth of data? Or are we really looking at the last 3 months to try to determine what may be different during that time frame?
Yeah. We provided data back to 2015. And, the only, I guess, one change that happened along the line is that the city switched methods of chlorination, of how they chlorinated. There's ammonia in the naturally occurring ammonia in the water, and how the chlorine reacts with ammonia. At DNR's suggestion, the city changed a little bit of how they dose the chlorine in response to that ammonia. And Dr. Edwards has that information. We're looking at that. But as far as a major change, this is a lime soda ash softening process, and the process has been operated pretty much the same since the plant was built, I think. The city tracks a corrosion stability index, as most conventional plants do. And that index that the operators were tracking showed that there was low potential for corrosion. Unfortunately, as Dr. Edwards pointed out, that corrosion index doesn't really apply to this type of corrosion. And he says counterintuitive. Well, counterintuitive means that this index that the city was tracking showed that the water should not be corrosive, and it's really related to pH as the primary driving factor on that. So it's a crazy thing, and I don't know, Dr. Edwards, if you can expand any more on what I just thought, but you're the expert. I'm just kind of in layman's terms here with a little engineering twist on it, telling way if we see it.
Right, right. So again, the irony of this is, with the benefit of hindsight, very often changes that are made in response to EPA or state DNR or EPA regulations make this problem worse. You have to understand all the regulations are designed first and foremost so the water does not make you sick. They don't consider what it does to the pipes owned by the city or by the consumers. That's not on the radar of the health agencies, of which I include EPA. So this problem is really a nightmare for water utilities, because oftentimes, again, they make a change to make the water more safe, and boom, you get more of these leaks. So I'm not saying that's what happened here. I am telling you that's what happened in a majority of prior cases. And it makes for a very frustrating situation. And I sense that frustration. And that's why I've been probably the only professor in the world studying this problem for 31 years, because I've seen what it does to people. So, so I think that's true for this, case as well, that, the issue is there's been a change in the chlorination practice. That change was made with good intentions, and I think with good results in terms of the safety of the water. But it's also true that that change would have tended to make the water to have a greater propensity to cause pinhole leaks based on our prior laboratory work, to the extent that that's relevant in the situation.
And thank you, Councilman McKinney, for rephrasing that question, because again, I don't ask this question to necessarily like, oh, there it is. I ask this question so all of us, community council, city staff, and engineers and consultants, are on the same page on the data we're analyzing, and the data, the people at home are using to draw their own opinions. And the more of that data they have, the more of that relevance they have to the actual facts, the better I think our community can come together to solve this. So I appreciate your answer. I don't believe any changes were made maliciously. Any changes were made with ill intent. Again, they were probably made to counteract some things they're seeing in the test to make the water drinkable and safe. So again, I ask these questions again just to get on the same page, to start that foundation, because this is a long road where I like step 3. So just building that two-way street of trust from the cities to the communities. Why I pose this question. So I appreciate your answers and your speeches as well, Dr. Edwards.
And I think Greg mentioned that it was that DNR suggestion, and that method of chlorination is pretty common within Iowa. Is that correct?
That's right. And it's a long story. I won't go through all the details of why DNR would recommend this, but it's to counteract another issue that comes up with there's a little bit of ammonia in the water, and that's the formation of nitrites. And some cities have been through that, and that's probably why this came about, this recommendation. It's not a simple yes or no type statement. I will want to reiterate what the city has done. The city took swift action and acted on Dr. Edwards' recommendation, and our recommendation is to use the orthophosphate corrosion inhibitor, which very good turnaround in solving this problem. There's no promises being made how fast this is going to happen, or if it's going to be the solution, as Dr. Edwards pointed out. But it definitely is a step in the right direction, and also looking at other process control parameters at the plant.
Could you, kind of again in layman's terms, explain what that new additive does? Does it like basically counteract the effects of what's currently building up on our pipes?
Yeah, Dr. Edwards, if you could address that, good question.
Yes, in the subset of waters where this inhibitor works, of which I hope you're one, it reduces the reaction between the chlorine in the water and the copper pipe. It forms a barrier. Now, this chemical is about as safe as you can get. It's added to food. It's added to 50% of the water systems across the country to control corrosion. Usually it's added to control lead and copper release to water. But we found out that for some waters, it really does reduce the rate at which chlorine can eat up these pipes so that you're back to these baseline normal levels of leak.
Thank you.
What is it, doesn't every house in every house in every block have this problem? Some have them and some don't. Just, they all have copper pipes, but not every house has the problem.
Amount of water used or something.
I don't know if Dr. Edwards heard the question.
So there are a variety of factors that can increase the likelihood that you will experience a leak that are under, that tend to go with the following factors. Number one, how close are you to the water treatment plant, which means the chlorine level you get in your water. Number two, how frequently do you use your water? If you're a high frequency user, you're going to get more chlorine drawn through your pipes, for example. So those two factors alone can have an enormous impact on how, why, when, and where you get leaks in the copper pipe in certain neighborhoods or certain types of homes where there's either high or low water use. There's a wide variety of factors. Ultimately, it does become also a statistical phenomenon wherein there's a certain randomness to it. But those two factors in prior cases where, again, I hope that's the subset of waters you have where orthophosphate will stop this problem. Water use in proximity to the treatment plant proved to be amongst the most important variables that determine your likelihood of getting a leak.
I might add a comment to that. The obvious question is what's the leak pattern in Webster City? And the city staff has been keeping a map of location of leaks, and it's pretty much random across the distribution system.
Anyone else have any questions for me?
I can kind of bolster that fact a little bit because my wife, we've had 2 months in a row, we've had water bill over $100 because my wife watered evergreen trees that she paid a lot of money for, and she's trying to save. So we have used an awful lot of water this summer. So maybe it's your fault, I don't know.
You don't got anything?
I'd rather deal
Your
with you
face
than
says you have something to say. You don't got anything to say on anything?
I didn't bring my torch and pitchfork like I thought. I just kind of came to get filled in on answers. Sorry, Burke Plain, Virginia Parkway. I'll give everybody a little bit of timeline. I posted on Facebook. I'm not like trying to cause public outcry. In fact, it's the same phrase I went when I met with everybody at the water treatment plant in June. The first pinhole leak I saw was in May of 2020, and I kind of wrote it off as a common copper failure. It's an older house. Through last fall, I started seeing more and more, and then I started taking mental inventory of the horizontal line, is it a Burke line, cold line, do they have a softener, is it ground? Everything that's on your questionnaire, I was asking that before. Come February, it's like the floodgates really kind of opened up, and I kind of mumbled to a couple of homeowners that had repeat problems, and then former water treatment plant director called me up and said that I was trying to cause public outcry and would like to meet with me. Not only did I meet with just him, I met with every employee of the city water plant. Brought samples of pipes. I gave a list of 32 homes I had been to in 30 days. And my phrase to him was, this is a bit excessive. I said, somebody needs to be looking into this. Nothing happened. So then I went, Brandon at the street department, him and I were friends. I took him the exact same list and samples. Logan happened to have one 2 weeks after that. Then it kind of got progressively more. And Brandon down the street department, he's been reaching out to me every now and again. It's like, hey, how many have you done in the last 30 days? September 1st, he called me up. How many did you have in the last 30 days? From August 1st to September 1st, I had 57 different houses. That isn't multiple times. Poor Steve here, I've been to his house like 10 times. Tyler's, I can't even count how many times I've been to his apartment complex. And I feel bad for these people. I have no answers for them. So one thing I will say to the city council, though, is silence breeds assumption. If you guys ain't coming out with just a little bit of something, even if you don't know, don't shrug your shoulders, say, hey, man, we're still looking into it, but man, we feel for you guys. Because right now, the Webster City residents feel like they're out on this raft and they're just getting left behind, but like, well, deal with them. You know, because their insurance companies are telling them the same damn thing. You know, I'm finding that out. You know, and a lot of people say, well, why is a plumber irate about this? Well, I have other things I'd rather be doing than doing pinholes, okay? I'm not preying on a community. In fact, it's kind of irate that it's taken a long to get to here. I think it's way too long. And I know, like you said, that answers don't come overnight. There's a lot of factors. But I mean, in my opinion, I think the flag should have been raised in June. You know, I mean, did you guys meet about it in June? Did you hear about it in June? I mean, whoever runs the water plant, who do they answer to? Because that should have been taken to his boss, or, you know, where's the chain of command on that?
But even then, my questions would have been, like, how are we testing? Like, how are...
I understand.
All the questions I would have asked, they would have said, yep, we're within range, yada, yada, yada.
They all sat around in a circle, stared at it. One guy's like, oh, it's just old pipes. I said, I have a house that was re-water piped. It was galvanized. It had copper put in 18 years ago. I've been to this house 6 times in a year. It's 18-year-old copper pipe. Don't tell me it's old copper. Don't tell me it's a failure.
Right.
You know, and I understand what you're saying, right? Is when they say it's safe to drink, that's great. That's very rest assuring to know with all this problem, we still have safe drinking water, okay? But at the same time, there's, like I said, the Webster City residents feel like they're just out to sea and watching the search boat pull away from them.
What is it, you know, I mean, we've been looking into it, we don't have any answers.
No, I understand that.
We still don't have any answers.
To Burke's point, though.
So I'm not sure what it is they want us to hear, but we don't have any answers.
To Burke's point is, he came as a professional to our water department with examples and testimony from his profession. It was met with deaf ears. It took me getting a couple pinhole leaks in my home and talking to Burke at my office and my home, going, hey, wow, I just my pipes went out. I have a house built in the 70s, stuff happened. And he made me aware of stuff. I sent an email, and like Daniel mentioned earlier, when Councilman Welch sent that email, we started looking into it. I think the frustration from Burke's end is he was ringing the bell long before I was. And this could have been started 6, 7, 8 months prior to when it did start. It could have got us ahead of the game. It could have got us this new treatment process in our pipes sooner, if that is even going to help us. Hopefully it does. We need to start taking citizens seriously. And then when we do look into it, we need to start feeding information back out as we obtain it. This isn't us versus them. This is an us thing. And
maybe he should have gone further up the chain of command.
Yeah, but that's not his responsibility. The department, the water superintendent should have brought this to Daniel. Shouldn't have took an email from me to spur this, because the evidence on the street was already coming in months before that. It just happened to hit my house. That's the only reason I even got into it. So I think that's the frustration I'm hearing from Burke. The frustration I'm also hearing from the community is they're of left out to dry that we don't have answers, so we can't really make a choice or decision or even a contingency plan how to take care of this. But we can give them is exactly what we know. And if we don't know anything, we should be telling them every day or two on a press release going, hey, we don't know anything, but it's November 1st. Hey, we don't know anything, but it's November 2nd. November 3rd, hey, we know something. And then we're keeping them in the loop instead of this us and them, which causes this community divide. And then the coffee shops and the bars of the world are creating that narrative for us, where we could control that by bringing everybody in. I'm very appreciative that we're talking about this tonight. I'm very appreciative of the respect and the stories people have brought to us. Again, I just think this could have been started sooner and handled differently.
I personally believe that since this came to fruition, 3 weeks ago, we've done our very best announcing everything we can to the public. We could every day say we don't know anything more. In my opinion, that wouldn't be the way to go, but that's just my individual opinion. I don't want to hear that you don't know anything from yesterday. I want to hear when you know new stuff. And I think we've been the public has been getting the messages the same day that I get the messages and you get the messages as far as updates on changes of any kind. So I'll give staff a kudos for that, because I personally don't want to see a blind everyday message. Oh, nothing new today. I want to see when we have some answers for them.
Let me ask you this. When did we start treating the water with the new treatment? Because we didn't make the public know. So that there shows me we're not being transparent. So I understand there's certain things we can or cannot divulge, but we can divulge a change in how we're treating their water when the water pipes are an issue. So there are new details day to day. This thing unfolds a little bit over time, and they need to be reading the pages as we read this book. And that's what I'm frustrated with.
Okay. Anyone else have anything?
Hey, one more question, and then just to bug on the windshield too. But it's like, if a homeowner calls City Hall and says, hey, I want my curb stop located, and they send the meter readers out there, the two guys from Webster, I think they get charged $35. And then I heard through the grapevine that that's been waived. Well, does the public know that? I mean, or they know that they can even call City Hall to have their curb stop located? You know, I mean, there's little things, like I said, that a little bit would go a long way, I think, you know, with communication. Hey, by the way, you're not gonna get dinged $35. I mean, there's a lot of people in town that can't even afford to have a plumber come put a Band-Aid on a pipe right now, you know, and it's like I said, I'm just coming here as a concerned citizen, not the plumber that said, oh, I told you all last year. No, I ain't doing that. I'm just saying the snowball could have been rolling a little bit sooner, and at the same time, the communication from the city to the community could be a whole lot better too. I mean, it's not just we don't know nothing. No, but hey, by the way, if you need your curb stop located, call down City Hall, we'll get somebody dispatched. I even went as far as calling Brandon Barnabas and saying, hey, you guys just GPS every curb stop in Webster City. Doesn't guarantee it's gonna shut off. I said, would you guys mind go around and just paint them all? Because I don't have the time to wait, you know. But that a little bit would go a long way for help for everybody, I think.
Okay. Anyone else? Anything else?
Well, I do want to comment. I've been in apartment buildings, homes. Burke, you're at my home today. Actually, thank you. My wife appreciates it. That's my fourth one in my own home. So I feel for you out there. I'm in the same boat as you. This is very frustrating. For some people, it's a nuisance. Other people, this could be financial failure. And I'm really worried about those homes or those, homes occupied by people that maybe that don't have the affluency to cover some of these damages, to walk away from those homes. And this becomes, a dilapidated home issue in 5 or 10 years instead of a water line issue. So I feel for you. We're figuring this out. I know I spoke somewhat aggressively towards the way this was handled tonight, but I have faith the city will find a solution, find mitigation means, and hopefully our communication both ways from the community and outward and inward improves.
Well, thank you, Dr. Edwards. was very helpful anyway. I'm sure everyone here was glad that you were talking tonight. And thanks, Greg.
Thank you for having me, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Okay. So we have, item B is a public hearing. Public hearing for 6:05 PM on proposal to enter into a sewer revenue loan and disbursement agreement. So I will open the hearing. Are there any written objections?
Receive no written objection.
Are there any oral objections?
No oral objection.
I'll close the hearing. So I guess, Barry, you want to talk on that?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and council members. The item before you is a follow-up to last week's agenda item on the planning and design loan for the new wastewater treatment plant. Basically, this public hearing was to hear from the public and also a resolution authorizing the additional action that's needed to enter into the loan and disbursement agreement with the Iowa Finance Authority for up to $2 million to plan and design and do all of the activities for the new wastewater treatment plant. Again, we only have to pay back what we borrow. We don't have to borrow the full $2 million. This is a 0% interest loan for up to 3 years. So this is the financing mechanism that we felt would be best for the city to alleviate cash flow with the sewer fund.
Okay. There are two separate memos on this item. The first was to enter into a revenue loan and disbursement agreement, and the second addressed letter of engagement with Dorsey and Whitney. That's right. So we have a resolution authorising the city clerk and the mayor to sign and execute engagement letter with Dorsey and Whitney.
I move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. And the second is a resolution taking additional action with respect to a sewer revenue loan and disbursement agreement and authorising and approving securing the payment of $2 million, $2 million sewer revenue loan and disbursement agreement anticipation project note, IFA interim loan and disbursement agreement. Call for motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. C is a recommended approval of issuance of beer and liquor licenses to the Iowa Department of Commerce for the following. Item 1 is a change of license from Class A liquor license, outdoor service and Sunday service, to a Class C liquor license and outdoor service for American Legion, Post 191, 726 2nd Street, Webster City. 2 is a renewal of a Class C liquor license, outdoor service and Sunday service for Carthy's Biker Bar at 732 2nd Street, Webster City. Item 3 is a renewal of a Class C liquor license and Sunday service for CNC American Tap at 526 2nd Street, Webster City.
Move to approve collectively.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item D is a continuation of an item tabled on 10/18 of 2021 meeting, second reading on ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of City, West City, Iowa, 2019 by adding subsection 39 to Chapter 46, Article 2, Section 46 to 50 on stop requirements at certain streets. So have everybody read into that again? You still recommend we have stop signs there?
They haven't met it again, so their stance is the same, correct?
Correct.
We just pulled more data from the meeting and got kind of the sentiments behind the recommendation.
That's correct, and we also researched some additional information that the IODOC has put out with regards to low volume or ultra low volume intersections. We currently don't have any specific policy or guidance in place with regards to how we handle requests for stop signs where there are no reports or records of accidents or other traffic violations at that intersection or within the immediate area. Typically, I think as the report had noted in the past, there was intersections, I believe, on Broadway in which we actually consulted and with Snyder and Associates, our traffic engineering firm, to actually do a traffic study at those three intersections. But then the analysis or the data that came back to it kind of pointed to a couple different scenarios or solutions that ultimately was up to the traffic committee and then approval to the council of those stop signs at those locations. With this particular intersection, there is no data, there is no record of a traffic accident at that location that Chief Moore had looked into, and I don't know if any others in that area that would stand out.
No, there was one in 2017 and one in 2018, a couple blocks away, but nothing for this intersection.
Will they be able to hear him on the thing?
And so, yeah, and that's the other part where, we currently don't have any means of recording or documenting traffic counts or average speeds. Way back when, years ago, or probably even much longer, before 2010, we did have a traffic counting machine as well as a radar message sign. But since then, for the last at least 5-7 years, they haven't been working or we have since gotten rid of them. So one option, if you wanted to revert it back and ask the traffic committee to review the matter again with any specific guidance the council wants to provide, you also do have the option if you wanted to commission a traffic study for that particular intersection. Possible third or fourth option would be the local agency transportation program, a partnership between Iowa State University and the Iowa DOT, does provide some equipment that can measure or track some of that data. They do lend out those pieces of equipment. I think they have two, depending on which equipment you want to use, that they loan out. One currently is being loaned out to Webster County that can be positioned at the intersection or in close proximity to actually get some updated informal traffic counts or another traffic data if you so choose. The fourth option could be if we wanted to purchase or look into incorporating into our upcoming budget process, acquiring some of that equipment for ourselves that we can use on a much regular basis for either traffic counts or average speeds in those locations. That would be beneficial, but that would take some time. That may not be useful, at least in this current situation.
So the thing I don't like about this is, and tell me if I'm wrong, we had one complaint about this intersection. We haven't had any accidents in 10 years, and we have decided to just throw a stop sign on it.
Let's have Matt come up. Matt, you at the meeting. Say that again? Yeah. So he was on that.
I'm the secretary for the traffic committee.
Yeah. So what was the cause, I guess, was just somebody coming in?
It was just a letter that was sent to me, well, actually, I believe Shiloh received it, he forwarded it on to me to get it on the traffic committee agenda. There was a brief conversation about it, and they voted to install the stop signs.
I understand, those traffic studies are kind of expensive, and people are like, well, and we can just make the executive decision and throw a stop sign there. But I know what you're kind of saying, Brian.
Or not.
Not, because these start sparking up. Kids will be on that corner this year, but 10 years that stop sign might not make any sense. And I'm not saying like we don't be safe, but if stop signs start popping up because one neighbor says, hey, I think a stop sign would make my neighborhood a little safer, or mitigate any exposure to the kids with high speeds. The next thing you know, every intersection's got a stop sign in 10 or 15 years. So I think it would be wise of us to maybe taxing maybe the street department or some department that has the bandwidth to maybe set up some device, or we acquire some device to start doing some studies on our own when stuff like this arises. Again, I don't want to just laugh in the face of safety, because again, if this is a true concern, that we really do think a stop sign would be the end all danger in that intersection, then I'd back their recommendation. But again, I can see this popping up on several intersections in the next 10 or 15 years, and our houses, our community is speckled with stop signs.
I mean, we had this recently on Cedar, the corner of Cedar and something by Wilson House, that was a valid, I mean, there were multiple.
Cedar Prospect,
Right.
or Cedar, Webster, and Boone was
Right.
part of that study.
Right, multiple accidents there, very common thoroughfare for many people. I mean, this is a 2 blocks, Spartable's 2 blocks long, like, it just seems, I mean, how does, like, what does that stop me from saying, you know, get one of my neighbors and saying, hey, we want to write a letter to you, I'd like to stop sign at corner First and Woolsey, which there have been accidents there. Like, where does it stop? Like, how, if we just are giving one to an intersection that hasn't had accidents in 10 years and one person complained, where does that stop? Or should we just start budgeting for stop signs at every intersection in Webster City? I'm looking at you just because you're up there. I'm not attacking you. It's just a precedent.
Criteria.
Yeah, we need to me, there's got to be some more logic to it, I guess. Not necessarily spending thousands of dollars on a test, but, you know, what's another one? Juanita. If we get one for the corner of Juanita and Webster, that would be another short, that's a 1 block street, I believe.
And I don't even think an accident on the corner is a criteria to have, because then we're kind of retroactively making a intersection safe because of an accident. But again, with speed testing and traffic testing and usage, we can focus those stop signs or that traffic, you know, direction on those main thorough streets or you know, stuff like that. I remember a comment. I sat in on a traffic committee meeting once, and I think we're talking about the ones on Prospect that cross, you know, Cedar, Webster, you know, whatever, Walnut, whatever. And we talked about sometimes stop signs give you that sense of safety from the other direction.
If they don't.
Right. So there's kind of a negative effect too on like a 2-way stop sign in a 4-way intersection. So there's just a kind of a lot of like nuance in there, kind of a lot of like I guess imagination. Oh yeah, we should or shouldn't. Objectivist, maybe we could use. So yeah, if we can form some criteria and then have the means to test that traffic and speed, then we can really start identifying and really put our efforts towards a more safe network of roads instead of just kind of, hey, this person wants to run, yay or nay. And I greatly appreciate the traffic committee's work. I mean, they've had some cool stuff in front of them lately, and if their call is to do this, I understand their call, but I just don't want it to become a thing where any intersection could have a stop sign based on one complaint.
So will the piece of equipment that's currently available from out of the university solve some of those questions? Speed, traffic counts, things like that. And then maybe long-term, we could look at what that costs for the city to have a piece of equipment like that.
Yeah, according to the information from Iowa State's LTAP program, you know, so this, one of the devices they have does collect data on vehicle speeds, lengths, gaps, and volumes. And so it does provide some of that. We have reached out to them. We do know that Webster County is borrowed. They have 2 units. One is being borrowed right now by Webster County. So they were going to check in with them to see when they become available that we can get it. If that's the route the council wanted to go in terms of a timetable, I would estimate that probably would be, they let us borrow it for about 2 weeks then. So and they would probably train and show us how to do that. So it would probably be anywhere from, I would probably say 45 to 90 days before we get some concrete data that you guys can act on. And there's a question if you want that data to go back to the traffic committee first, or just come back to you guys based off of, you already know the traffic committee's recommendations.
Even if we borrow that thing, and maybe Shiloh can tell us, there's got to be intersections that are much more dangerous and much more worrisome than this one for that piece of equipment.
So you're saying like borrow it to really put it on
Somewhere that's a higher traffic, a more.
But this one's on the, we either going to reject this one or we're going to accept it, or we put it on this one and test it. And of course, for the long term, obviously, maybe we're better off budgeting for one so that these guys have more tools to deal with other than just.
Well, the other part, I mean, this device, put it up here. You know, this device captures the data. It doesn't solve the question that I think some of you are trying to answer is what's the parameter, what's the guideline that's going to justify putting a stop sign or putting some other traffic control device at that intersection.
Zach Muffin, Division Street. I guess one thing I would take into consideration on the whole stop sign situation in this area is that we had a big detour right off Beach for most of the year, which caused a lot of traffic from the high school to cause more traffic on Webster, Division, Bank First. Every east and west street in that area got more traffic this year. So now that that street has opened back up today, I would say that we will probably see a little bit less traffic.
Traffic committee actually has a couple items that are on tabled agenda right now because of that as well. But they're tabled because of the project on Second Street.
I'm open to investigating a piece of equipment to help better identify these or justify these, is maybe a better term. Give the traffic committee another tool.
For future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As for this.
You want to move to strike this one?
I'll motion for that.
Well, I think you need to, I think you.
Take it, vote it, or put it up in the motion, and then.
Motion to approve second reading, and then if you don't want to approve it, you're gonna have to.
Or it's not vote, you're not
Yeah.
in the motion, period.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just let it die in a second reading.
Yeah, that's the last.
All right, so silence.
Well, you moved and seconded, but you can redact those things.
What do you want us to do? I don't want to.
If we have a motion and a second, should we just do a vote and you don't have to do that?
So we'll just move on. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks.
And I will have to look see if we can get you some more tools so that in the future we'll have more information.
Like a
So we're
chair.
gonna say no motion was made.
Yeah, he's gonna originally send it Brian redacted,
Sit you on the corner with the clicker.
and whoever the second was redacted second.
Okay, Megan did.
Thank you.
Where am I?
Set public hearing on
Okay,
city
yeah.
hall.
Resolution setting public hearing on proposed land specifications and proposed form of contract and estimate costs for construction of the 2021 City Hall basement and floor reconstruction project for December 20th at 6:05 p.m. Call for motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Item F is a resolution setting public hearing on a proposed purchase agreement for city-owned property located on Southeast Development Park Number 2, West City, Iowa, on November 15th at 6:05 p.m. So we're just setting that
Just put them
public
in.
hearing, so.
It's only for half of that, right? Cody?
Yeah, it's only half of that.
It's only half that
The
lot.
north half.
The north half, not a lot, yeah.
Yeah, that's what, I think somewhere else, one of our other ones shows it as half.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
same sign. Sorry. Item G is discussion on change, for the ORV golf cart ordinance to allow the use of ORV off-road vehicles side by sides on Superior Street. Is that what you came for, man?
Can we listen?
Well, nothing happens.
I can speak to that.
All right, you can too.
Tyler Abrams, 305 Edgewood Drive.
Do you wanna come over to the podium?
He can probably hear him
Just
from
about
there.
deep, I just know it's difficult to try to get across Superior Street for Edgewood Drive and Bicentennial residents, which is myself. So you gotta quick go down Superior Street and hook into, Pleasant Street, try to go on it for the shortest amount of time as possible. Until the streets off of Edgewood Drive where those apartments are get opened, then we could go over to the light on Fair Meadow and cross. But really you have no way of getting there. You're landlocked without going on Superior Street for some period of time
I
there.
think you just admitted to breaking the law.
I've talked to the police about it before, that I don't know how, or go down along the edge on the grass, which I asked Peterson's permission to cross through, but now there's all that equipment there and stuff going on that you can't get through, so. I think it's inevitable if you're trying to get to Edgewood Drive that you gotta go on Superior Street, at least until those other streets are open, so.
Well, Matt brought up the fact that they can maintain normal traffic speed, so.
Yeah, I think that would be my concern. I think if we make this change that it specifies ORV and not golf carts, that would be a nuisance too. You know, that they cannot keep up to the speed of the street.
And the current ordinance
Traffic.
spells out separate, they're separate anyway.
Yeah, there's more roads that the golf cart still can't go on regardless of Superior Street. They still can't go on Second Street, for example.
The golf carts can cross Superior though, right?
Anything can cross any of those roads, they just can't, like, golf carts can't go on Superior, Second Street or Superior.
Having a golf cart, you know, it'd be about 12 miles an hour downhill with tailwind. I wouldn't want to be on Superior anyway, so it would make sense to separate those and then let ORVs use Superior.
So we use that one,
Just need guidance
Yeah, I just think.
if we need to bring first reading back
Yeah.
to allow that.
Well, we were thinking that the state was gonna do something, but
Yeah, but
I guess we're gonna
don't hold my breath.
we're gonna do it quicker than they.
I think they're trying to come up with a more consent or a concise agreement for all communities. I can actually bring a little light on that subject, as far as the state.
You wanna stand up?
Yeah, I can stand up.
You just gotta talk there.
No, but as far as the state is concerned on the ordinance that they're trying to bring around throughout the state, which has pretty much stopped, they've completely stopped that whole thing for this point in time. And as far as the city is concerned throughout the state, you are your own entity as far as the state is concerned. So you can do what you want as of right now. Until they pass, yeah, right. Yeah.
I was gonna say, do you wanna tell the state that?
Yeah. As far as ORVs and ATVs are concerned, yeah. So it won't be, just so you're all prepared, it's not gonna be the next meeting, you're not gonna have it, because I'm gonna be out of country for a week, so you won't see me so just so you're all.
If you get back.
I just don't want you coming out and banging the door down on the 15th, when I just landed.
So what you're saying is you wanna take that laptop with you?
I don't want to, I don't consider.
I just, since we're kind of talking about Superior, but the intersection at Superior, the stoplight, we had some work done on those, right? Has that been done?
It hasn't been finished, well, that one, the sensors that trigger the left turning lanes have apparently gone bad, and so I believe we're still waiting for the piece of equipment to come in to be able to replace it.
So everybody that's asked me, because they're sitting at that light all by themselves, like it's being fixed.
3 a.m. in the morning.
Well, I'm only one here. Yeah.
I will just put a reminder out too that the current ORV permits that have been issued expire December 31st of this year and will need to be renewed on an annual basis.
And you can start renewing them December 1, right?
I have the new stickers. Yeah.
Okay,
So the consensus is
to move ahead.
Zach will do it on
Have that
vacation.
With the ORV.
Zach will have it at the next meeting.
Nope, it will not be.
Kennedy does it.
I'm in.
You know how to go. Okay.
I know, I think it's important, that's why we're talking about the sticker part, there is no grace period, so I don't want people to think they get like a free month, like you do with your normal tags.
Right.
It's not you have to have your new tags on it by January 1.
All right. Okay. I guess we're down to your report.
We've covered it all tonight, so if you have questions.
Pretty well.
You're welcome.
Feel free to answer. Just making more work for me.
Okay.
Job security.
More vacation money.
So anything else? Any other information? Call for motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor, sign.
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks very much, everybody. Sorry we didn't, not be into everything you wanted, but we're getting there.
Gotta get down. Gotta get over.